The civilization that arose along the fertile banks of the Nile River is renowned not just for its monumental architecture, but for its astounding longevity, sustaining a distinct cultural and political identity for over 3 millennia, from roughly 3100 BCE to 30 BCE. This extraordinary duration, which makes ancient Egypt one of the longest-lasting continuous civilizations in history, is typically segmented by modern historians into distinct periods: the early dynastic period, the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom, separated by periods of transition and instability known as intermediate periods. The ancient Egyptians themselves referred to their homeland as Kemet, meaning the Black Land, a profound and practical reference to the rich, dark alluvial soil deposited annually by the life-giving Nile flood. This narrow, vital strip of fertile ground was in stark contrast to the vast arid deserts on either side, which they called Deshret, the Red Land. This geographical duality was the foundation of their entire worldview. The Nile was, quite simply, the central pillar of their existence, dictating agriculture, travel, trade, and even their religious perspectives on cycles and renewal. The annual inundation of the river, which they learned to predict and exploit, was the basis of their sophisticated calendar system, a technological feat that preceded many others. By observing the skies, priests and skilled astronomers noted that the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, known to them as Sopdet, coincided almost perfectly with the beginning of the crucial flooding season. This observation led to the establishment of their remarkably accurate 365-day calendar, which demonstrates the intertwined nature of science, religion, and practical life in ancient Egypt. But the political foundation of this enduring civilization was laid with the legendary unification of Upper, Southern, and Lower Northern Egypt. This crucial event, traditionally attributed to a king named Menes or Narmer around 3100 BCE, marked the beginning of the dynastic period, where political control and religious authority were consolidated and passed down through ruling families. This unprecedented geographical and political stability, rooted in a geographically isolated and predictable environment, allowed Egyptian civilization to flourish, developing complex societal structures, specialized crafts, and a deeply embedded belief system centered on order and the eternal cycle of life and death. Their very existence was predicated on the predictability of the Nile and the diligent maintenance of that cosmic order or mat which the living king, the Pharaoh, was ultimately responsible for upholding. This initial stability enabled grand building projects and the refinement of their unique writing system, setting the stage for the monumental achievements in architecture and administration that still define the civilization today, demonstrating how their geographical reality shaped their enduring cultural and political identity across millennia. This longevity allowed them to develop technologies and beliefs, such as early surgical tools and the comprehensive view of the afterlife, that far outpaced many other contemporary societies, making their timeline and geographical mastery the essential starting point for understanding their subsequent achievements. At the apex of the meticulously structured Egyptian society stood the pharaoh, a figure who was far more than a mere mortal monarch. He was considered the living embodiment of the divine, a literal god on earth whose authority was absolute. The pharaoh's religious identity shifted with his state of being in life. He was identified with the powerful falcon-headed god Horus, the divine ruler and protector of Egypt. Upon death, he became one with Osiris, the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and rebirth. This dual identity imbued the pharaoh with absolute spiritual and temporal power, justifying his role as the necessary link or intermediary between humanity and the gods. His paramount duty was the rigorous preservation of Mat, the foundational concept encompassing truth, justice, harmony, balance, and cosmic order. Any failure on the pharaoh's part to maintain Mat weather through poor administration, military defeat, widespread famine, or even a simple lack of ritual performance was viewed not just as a political setback, but as a crisis of cosmic proportions that could plunge the world into the primordial chaos or isfet. The pharaoh's divinity was constantly reinforced through elaborate public rituals, complex religious festivals, and the use of sacred regalia and symbols. For instance, in ceremonial settings, pharaohs, regardless of their biological sex, a notable example being the female pharaoh Hatshepsut, were obligated to wear a distinct, intricately plaited false beard. This was not a fashion statement, but a sacred symbol connecting the living ruler directly to the deceased god Osiris, reinforcing the eternal and cyclical nature of the kingship that transcended individual life. Other powerful regalia included the double crown representing the unified kingdom of Upper and Lower Egypt, the crook symbolizing his role as shepherd of his people, and the flail representing the ruler's compelling and protective power. Beneath the divine ruler was a highly sophisticated and centralized bureaucratic machine essential for the functional governance of the vast kingdom. The most powerful civil official was the vizier, who served as the pharaoh's right-hand man and chief advisor, overseeing the judicial system, national treasury, irrigation projects, and the critical collection of state records. The complexity of the administration demanded a highly literate workforce, and the scribe class held immense influence and respect, mastering the complex hieroglyphic script. Crucially, the kingdom relied on a meticulous and complex system of taxation, which was rarely paid in coinage, as that concept was adopted much later. Instead, taxes were paid in kind. Citizens and workers contributed to the state in the form of grain, cattle, textiles, or mandatory labor, a system that allowed the state to mobilize massive resources efficiently. This labor was used for monumental construction projects and archaeological evidence, such as the intact workers. village of Diyar el-Medina strongly suggests that the enormous workforce required for the pyramids and temples comprised highly organized, professional laborers, not enslaved peoples who were paid in commodities like beer and bread for their work, a fact that strongly counters popular historical misconceptions about forced servitude in the New Kingdom. The pharaoh's power, therefore, was not merely military or political, but rested on his ability to successfully manage the entire agricultural, religious, and social structure of the two lands, all under the divine mandate of Mat. The most enduring and instantly recognizable legacy of ancient Egypt is undoubtedly its monolithic architecture, primarily focused on monuments that served an eternal purpose, securing the passage of the deceased king to the afterlife and providing a majestic residence for the gods on earth. The journey toward the construction of the Great Pyramids began with a significant architectural leap. The earliest grand construction was not the familiar geometric shape, but the step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, built around 2670 BCE during the Third Dynasty. This structure was revolutionary and was conceived by the polymath Imhotep, who served as Djoser's vizier and chief architect. Breaking away from the previous tradition of flat-roofed mud brick tombs, mastabas, Imhotep conceptualized and executed the stacking of 6 progressively smaller mastabas on top of one another, creating the world's first large-scale stone building and establishing a durable template for the subsequent smooth-sided pyramids. The pinnacle of this development arrived during the Fourth Dynasty with the construction of the iconic Great Pyramids of Giza, built for the pharaohs Khufu, Kafir, and Menkaure. These gargantuan structures are not only testaments to incredible organizational skill and engineering prowess, but also to surprising mathematical and astronomical precision. Notably, the Great Pyramid of Khufu exhibits an extraordinary alignment to true north, deviating by less than 1/20th of a degree, a feat accomplished through sophisticated and meticulous astronomical observation, likely involving the rising and setting of circumpolar stars. Moreover, when first completed, these pyramids were not the weathered beiged sandstone structures we view today. They were entirely covered in meticulously cut and polished white casing stones made of fine Tora limestone. This outer layer would have made the pyramids gleam brilliantly under the intense desert sun, akin to giant terrestrial jewels that could be seen for miles. Near the pyramids stands the Great Sphinx, the largest monolithic statue in the world, carved from a single piece of limestone. While today it appears in its natural stone color, archaeological evidence, including residual pigments, suggests that the Sphinx likely once had vibrant colors, possibly a reddish hue on the face and yellow or blue stripes on the headdress, further enhancing its majestic and divine appearance. While the pyramids were built exclusively for the royal dead, the majestic temples served as the literal houses of the gods throughout the dynastic periods. These were not public places of worship for the common populace. Rather, they were exclusive sacred complexes where the pharaoh or his authorized priests performed daily rituals to care for the patron god residing within a cult statue in the innermost dimly lit sanctuary. The entire temple complex, with its massive entrance pylons, open courtyards, and hypostyle halls, acted as a cosmic model, symbolizing the primeval mound of creation emerging from the waters of chaos. Another striking architectural feature designed to interface directly with the divine power of the sun was the obelisk. These towering four-sided stone shafts tapered sharply to a pyramidion at the top, which was often clad in a mixture of gold and silver called electrum. The obelisks were seen as solidified rays of the sun, and their shape was believed to help channel and focus the powerful, creative energy of the sun god Ra, making them potent focal points for religious devotion and ensuring the architectural landscape mirrored the essential cosmic order. The ancient Egyptian preoccupation with the afterlife was not merely a spiritual concern, but a practical yet comprehensive endeavor to ensure a successful transition into the next world, a place they called the Field of Reeds, Aru, their version of paradise. Their beliefs hinged on a complex understanding of the soul, which was composed of several distinct parts. Central to this concept were the ka and the ba. The ka was the life force or spiritual double remaining in the tomb and requiring sustenance offerings of food and drink to survive. Thus, the tomb served as its eternal home. The ba, often depicted as a human-headed bird, represented the personality, mobility, and individuality of the deceased, allowing the spirit to travel between the tomb and the afterlife during the day. For the Ba to successfully return and reunite with the ka and the body had to be preserved, the entire rationale behind mummification. The journey itself through the underworld, known as the duat, was fraught with peril, requiring knowledge and protection. This knowledge was supplied by the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells, hymns, and instructions tailored specifically for the deceased to help them navigate the dangers, bypass hostile demons, and utter the correct passwords to gain access to sacred places. The most critical event in this journey was the final judgment, which took place in the Hall of Two Truths. Here the heart, which the Egyptians believed was the seat of all intellect, memory and emotion, not the brain, was the sole determinant of destiny. The deceased's heart was placed on a scale and weighed against a single object, the feather of Mat, the symbol of cosmic order, truth, and justice. If the heart was heavy with sin, falsehoods, or unrighteous actions, the scale would tip, and the heart would be immediately devoured by the terrifying goddess Ammit, the devourer of the dead. A chimeric monster with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, leading to the utter destruction of the soul. However, if the heart was deemed pure, being lighter than the feather of Mat, the deceased was declared true of voice. This pivotal judgment was meticulously recorded by the ibis-headed god Thoth, the god of writing and knowledge. Only upon passing this final, ultimate moral test was the soul allowed to proceed into the blessed eternal existence in the field of reeds. This meticulous preparation and spiritual accountability demonstrate that the Egyptian focus on the afterlife was a detailed spiritual and ethical undertaking that dominated their culture and dictated their funerary practices for millennia. The intricate ritual known as mummification was the cornerstone of the Egyptian belief in eternal life, an elaborate process not merely of preservation, but of transformation necessary to ensure the deceased king or noble could successfully transition into the afterlife and achieve a state of being known as et. The process was sacred and highly specialized, often performed by priests who wore the mask of the jackal-headed god Anubis, the deity of embalming and the protector of the dead. This meticulous undertaking was notoriously time-consuming and could take up to 70 days to complete, reflecting the importance and duration of astronomical cycles observed by the priests. The first and most crucial step involved the removal of the internal organs. The Egyptians firmly believed the heart was the center of all thought, memory, and emotion. Therefore, it was deemed absolutely essential for the deceased's identity and passage through the Hall of Two Truths and was deliberately left inside the body. This is a stark contrast to modern understanding, but it underscores the difference between spiritual and biological value in their worldview. Conversely, the brain, regarded as having little spiritual significance, was liquefied and removed, often by inserting long, specialized hooks through the nostrils and extracting the tissue piece by piece. The remaining organs, the lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines, were individually treated, dried, and then placed into 4 canopic jars. Each jar was stoppered with a lid representing one of the 4 sons of Horus. Imsiti human head protected the liver, Hopi baboon head protected the lungs, Duamutef jackal head protected the stomach, and Kebesanuf falcon head protected the intestines. Once the organs were secured, the body itself underwent the most critical drying phase. It was completely covered in natron salt, a naturally occurring compound found near the Nile, for approximately 40 days. Natron effectively dehydrated the body, preventing decay while preserving its structure. Following the dehydration, the shrunken husk of the body was cleaned, anointed with sacred oils and fragrant resins to restore a lifelike appearance, and meticulously stuffed with linen or sawdust. The final phase involved the wrapping of the body in hundreds of yards of linen bandages. During this process, protective amulets such as the scarab amulet to protect the heart during judgment were placed between the layers, and the entire wrapping was consecrated with resin to seal the body, transforming it into a symbolic statue and making it ready for the ritualistic burial in its elaborate sarcophagus. The success of this 70-day transformation ritual was seen as vital for the entire kingdom, ensuring the cycle of life and renewal could continue. The Egyptian pantheon was vast, complex, and highly flexible, often seeing gods and goddesses merge or adopt the attributes of others over time. reflecting regional power shifts and theological evolution. At the heart of their religious belief was the enduring cycle of the sun, personified by the supreme solar deity, Ra, who was considered the creator and the central source of all life. Ra's existence defined their cosmology. He traveled across the sky in his solar bark during the day, bringing light and heat at night. However, he descended into the Underworld, beginning a perilous journey through the 12 regions of the night, corresponding to the 12 hours of darkness. During this nightly voyage, Ra faced his greatest adversary, the monstrous serpent Apep or Apophis, the embodiment of chaos and darkness. His daily victory and successful reappearance at dawn symbolized the triumph of Mat over chaos, ensuring the renewal of the world. Many deities took on composite forms, representing the interconnectedness of their powers. For instance, Amen, the hidden god of Thebes, was frequently merged with Ra to become Amun-Ra, the king of the gods, signifying his supreme importance during the New Kingdom. A significant portion of the pantheon was represented in composite animal and human forms to embody their specific powers. Horus was depicted with the head of a falcon, symbolizing the sky and kingship. Anubis was the jackal-headed god of embalming and guardian of tombs. And Thoth was often shown with the head of an ibis, symbolizing his role as the god of writing, science, and wisdom. Animals held deep, symbolic, and literal sacred significance. The crocodile god Sobek, associated with fertility, military prowess, and the protection of the Nile, was often placated and revered, particularly in the Fayum region. Even more revered was the cat, associated with the powerful goddess Bastet, the deity of home, fertility, and protection. Cats were so sacred that injuring or killing one, even by accident, was considered a heinous crime punishable by death, and vast numbers of cats were mummified as offerings to Bastet. Other powerful female deities included Sekhmet, the fearsome lioness goddess of war, pestilence, and healing, and Nut, the sky goddess, who was believed to stretch her arched body over the earth, symbolically swallowing the sun every evening and giving birth to it again at dawn, perpetuating the cosmic cycle. Furthermore, the scarab beetle was revered, not for its appearance, but for its behavior of pushing dung balls, which the Egyptians saw as mirroring the movement of the sun across the sky. The scarab thus became a powerful symbol of rebirth and the rising sun, frequently used as an amulet to ensure the heart's protection during the final judgment in the afterlife. The depth and complexity of these interlinking myths formed the religious and moral framework that governed every aspect of Egyptian life, from the construction of temples to the daily duties of the pharaoh. The Egyptian civilization's ability to sustain its complex, centralized state for millennia rested heavily on its development of writing, an innovation so foundational that the gods themselves were credited with its invention. Thoth, emerging around 3200 BCE, the Egyptian script, known as hieroglyphs, sacred carvings, was one of the world's earliest known writing systems. It was not a simple alphabet, but a complex, sophisticated hybrid system combining three main types of signs: logograms, pictures representing entire words or concepts; phonograms, signs representing one or more consonant sounds akin to letters; and determinatives, signs added to the end of a word to clarify its meaning and categorization. This system was exceptionally rich, allowing for deep layers of symbolic meaning, and its mastery was a lifelong pursuit. The act of writing itself was regarded as having a magical quality, believed to literally bring words and images into existence, ensuring a person's name and deeds could live forever. Given the complexity of hieroglyphic script, literacy was an exclusive, highly valued skill, leading to the creation of the powerful scribe class. Scribes were trained from childhood, holding respected positions that often granted them access to high government and religious offices. They were the backbone of the state, responsible for everything from meticulously recording tax assessments and managing labor forces to documenting medical treatments and copying sacred religious texts. Over time, hieroglyphs evolved into a more cursive form called hieratic, used for rapid, everyday writing on lightweight and portable materials. This was the true material innovation: papyrus. Made from the pith of the papyrus plant that grew abundantly along the Nile. This material was layered, pressed, and dried to create a smooth, flexible surface, effectively becoming the ancient world's first paper. Papyrus revolutionized record-keeping, allowing for the easy creation and storage of vast scrolls containing everything from royal decrees and legal documents to medical treatises and personal correspondence. Indeed, among the more humanizing textual discoveries are surviving love poems, written on papyrus or pottery shards astraca, which speak of longing, beauty, and stolen moments, reminding us of the personal, emotional life beneath the grand monumental veneer. However, as the use of hieroglyphs declined after the Roman period, the script became unreadable. The key to unlocking this vast literary and historical heritage lay hidden until 1799, with the accidental discovery of the Rosetta Stone. This basalt slab contained the same decree inscribed in three scripts: Greek, Demotic, a later Egyptian cursive, and hieroglyphic. Because scholars could read ancient Greek, the Rosetta Stone provided the necessary linguistic bridge enabling Jean-François Champollion in the 1820s to finally crack the code, thereby reconnecting the modern world with 3 millennia of Egyptian thought, history, and sacred literature. The daily life of the ancient Egyptian population, from the peasant farmer to the construction worker, was fundamentally built upon a diet sustained by 2 simple yet indispensable staples: bread and beer. Beer, in particular, was not considered a luxury, but a crucial daily necessity. Made from partially baked barley bread that was soaked and fermented. The resulting drink was thick, nutritious, and mildly alcoholic, more akin to a liquid meal than modern clear beer. It was so integral to the economy that workers on state projects, including the Great Pyramid builders, were routinely paid in generous rations of bread and beer, making it a form of currency and a vital source of calories and hydration in the harsh desert environment. The state's ability to feed and maintain its massive labor forces, a key to its stability, hinged on industrial-scale bakeries and breweries operating near construction sites. Despite its essential role, the consumption of bread posed a serious challenge to dental health. The process of grinding the grain using stone querns inevitably introduced small fragments of sand and grit into the flour. When baked, this resulted in highly abrasive bread that caused severe dental wear, abscesses, and cracked enamel, even among the elite, as evidenced by forensic studies of mummies. This highlights a persistent health issue that plagued the population throughout its history. In addition to diet, the Egyptians demonstrated early interest in practical medicine and hygiene. Archaeological finds in tombs have uncovered specialized bronze tools, scalpels, needles, forceps, and probes suggesting that physicians were skilled in practical surgery, able to set broken bones and treat wounds. Their medical knowledge was recorded in extensive papyri detailing remedies that blended practical herbal medicine using ingredients like garlic, onion, and honey with magical incantations. They had prescriptions for common ailments ranging from headaches to hair loss using fats of various animals. Personal hygiene was also of great cultural importance, extending to the widespread use of cosmetics. Both men and women regularly applied kohl, a dark pigment made from ground minerals like galena, around the eyes. Beyond its striking aesthetic, kohl served a crucial protective and medicinal purpose. It reduced the intense sun's glare. It acted as an insect repellent, and modern research suggests it even had antibacterial properties that helped prevent eye infections, a necessity along the river. The color and smell of the body were also vital in ritual. Perfumes and aromatic oils, often imported resins like frankincense and myrrh, were used daily for grooming and were essential for religious ceremonies, purifying the statues of the gods and preparing the dead for eternity. This intricate blend of practical necessity, ritual purity, and nascent medical knowledge defined the physical and social landscape of everyday life in ancient Egypt. The social structure of ancient Egypt, while firmly hierarchical and ultimately centered on the divine pharaoh, offered a surprising degree of legal and economic equality to women when compared to many other contemporary and even later classical civilizations, such as Greece or Rome. Egyptian women, regardless of their social class, possessed significant legal rights. They were legally permitted to own, inherit, and dispose of property in their own names, without the need for a male guardian. They could enter into contracts, run businesses, and appear in court as legal equals to men, allowing wealthy and noble women to manage vast estates and exert considerable economic influence. This relatively advanced legal status was deeply rooted in the concept of mat, which emphasized balance and harmony in all things, extending to gender relations. While political power remained primarily in the hands of men, there were notable and powerful exceptions. Most famously Hatshepsut, who ruled as a full pharaoh during the 18th dynasty, to assert her authority in a male-dominated role. She adopted all the traditional royal regalia, including the male ceremonial false beard, and had herself depicted in statues and reliefs with masculine attributes to solidify her divine right to govern. Throughout Egyptian history, several prominent women held great influence as great royal wives, queen mothers, and high priestesses, demonstrating the spiritual and indirect political power available to them. This cultural acceptance persisted even when the country was ruled by foreign powers. Cleopatra VII, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, is often mistakenly viewed as purely Egyptian. In truth, she was descended from Greek Macedonian generals who took control after Alexander the Great's conquest. Her dynasty, the Ptolemies, maintained a Hellenistic Greek culture. However, Cleopatra strategically distinguished herself by fully embracing the local culture. She was the first of her dynasty to learn to speak the Egyptian language and presented herself in public ceremonies as a living manifestation of the Egyptian goddess Isis. This calculated blending of her Greek heritage with her adopted Egyptian identity was a political masterstroke, allowing her to command loyalty and power both within her Greek court and among the native Egyptian populace. The institution of the pharaohate was often secured through unusual means, including royal marriages with siblings, sisters, or half-sisters. It was primarily a political tool intended to preserve the purity of the divine bloodline and ensure the throne remained tightly controlled within the immediate royal family, separating the ruler from the rest of humanity. Therefore, the status of women in Egypt was a nuanced reflection of their society's legal and religious framework, granting them a sphere of freedom and influence largely unknown in the ancient Mediterranean world. The Egyptian civilization's ability to sustain its complex, centralized state for millennia rested heavily on its development of writing, an innovation so foundational that the gods themselves were credited with its invention. Thoth, the god of writing and knowledge. Emerging around 3200 BCE, the Egyptian script, known as hieroglyphs, sacred carvings, was one of the world's earliest known writing systems. It was not a simple alphabet, but a complex, sophisticated hybrid system combining three main types of signs: logograms, pictures representing entire words or concepts; phonograms, signs representing one or more consonant sounds akin to letters; and determinatives, signs added to the end of a word to clarify its meaning and categorization. This system was exceptionally rich, allowing for deep layers of symbolic meaning, and its mastery was a lifelong pursuit. For example, the image of a sun disk could be read as the god Ra, the word for day, or simply act as a silent determinative at the end of a word related to time. The act of writing itself was regarded as having a magical quality, believed to literally bring words and images into existence, ensuring a person's name and deeds could live forever. An essential component of achieving immortality. Given the inherent complexity and time required to master the hieroglyphic script, literacy was an exclusive, highly valued skill, leading to the creation of the powerful scribe class. Scribes were trained rigorously from childhood, often holding highly respected positions that granted them access to high government and religious offices. They were the administrative backbone of the state, responsible for everything from meticulously recording tax, assessments, and managing labor forces to documenting medical treatments and copying sacred religious texts, serving as the essential bureaucracy that kept the vast kingdom functioning. Over time, hieroglyphs evolved into a more cursive form called hierodetic, which was used for rapid, everyday writing on portable materials, demonstrating the script's flexibility. This was made possible by the true material innovation of the Egyptians, papyrus, made from the fibrous pith of the papyrus plant that grew abundantly along the Nile. This material was layered, pressed, and dried to create a smooth, flexible writing surface, effectively becoming the ancient world's first form of paper. Papyrus revolutionized record-keeping, allowing for the easy creation and storage of vast scrolls containing everything from royal decrees and legal documents to medical treatises and personal correspondence. Indeed, among the more humanizing textual discoveries are surviving love poems, written on papyrus or pottery shards, astraca, which speak of longing, beauty, and stolen moments, reminding us of the personal, emotional life beneath the grand monumental veneer. However, as the use of hieroglyphs declined after the Roman period, the script became unreadable for centuries, plunging Egyptian history into mystery. The key to unlocking this vast literary and historical heritage lay hidden until 1799, with the accidental discovery of the Rosetta Stone. This basalt slab contained the same royal decree inscribed in 3 distinct scripts: Ancient Greek, Demotic, a later Egyptian cursive, and hieroglyphic. Because scholars could read Ancient Greek, the Rosetta Stone provided the necessary linguistic bridge enabling Jean-François Champollion in the 1820s to finally crack the hieroglyphic code, thereby reconnecting the modern world with 3 millennia of Egyptian thought, history, and sacred literature. The profound depth of their written heritage remains one of their greatest contributions to human history. The daily life of the ancient Egyptian population, from the peasant farmer to the organized construction worker, was fundamentally built upon a diet sustained by 2 simple yet indispensable staples: bread and beer. Beer, in particular, was not merely a recreational beverage, it was a crucial daily necessity, made from partially baked barley bread that was soaked and fermented. The resulting drink was thick, nutritious, and mildly alcoholic, more akin to a liquid meal than modern clear beer. It was so integral to the economy and daily life that workers on state projects, including the laborers who built the Great Pyramids, were routinely compensated in generous rations of bread and beer, making it a form of currency and a vital source of calories and hydration in the harsh desert environment. Archaeological evidence from workers' villages near Giza confirms the existence of large-scale bakeries and breweries, operating on an industrial scale to feed the massive labor forces, highlighting the efficiency of their organizational system. Despite its essential role, the consumption of bread posed a serious challenge to dental health. The process of grinding the grain using crude stone querns inevitably introduced small fragments of sand and grit into the flour. When baked, this resulted in highly abrasive bread that caused severe dental wear, abscesses, and cracked enamel, even among the wealthy elite, as evidenced by forensic studies of thousands of mummies. This gritty diet highlights a persistent health issue that plagued the entire population throughout Egyptian history, with some mummies showing signs of primitive attempts at dental surgery. In addition to diet, the Egyptians demonstrated an early and consistent interest in practical medicine and hygiene. Archaeological finds in tombs and workshops have uncovered specialized bronze tools, scalpels, needles, forceps, and probes, suggesting that physicians were skilled in practical surgery, able to set broken bones, treat wounds, and drain abscesses. Their vast medical knowledge was systematically recorded in extensive papyri, such as the Ebers Papyrus, detailing hundreds of remedies that often blended practical herbal medicine using ingredients like garlic, onion, and honey with magical incantations, reflecting their belief that illness had both physical and spiritual causes. They had prescriptions for common ailments ranging from headaches to various skin conditions, and even documented concoctions for hair loss using fats of various animals. Personal hygiene was also of great cultural importance, extending to the widespread use of cosmetics. Both men and women regularly applied kohl, a dark pigment made from ground minerals like galena, around the eyes. Beyond its striking aesthetic, kohl served a crucial protective and medicinal purpose. Its dark color reduced the intense glare from the sun, acted as an insect repellent, and modern research has confirmed that it possessed antibacterial properties that helped prevent common eye infections, a necessity along the river. The color and smell of the body were also vital in ritual. Perfumes and aromatic oils, often imported resins like frankincense and myrrh, sourced from places like the land of Punt, were used daily for grooming and were essential for religious ceremonies, purifying the statues of the gods and anointing the dead for eternity. This intricate blend of practical necessity, ritual purity, and nascent medical knowledge defined the physical and social landscape of everyday life in ancient Egypt. The social structure of ancient Egypt, while firmly hierarchical and ultimately centered on the divine pharaoh, offered a surprising degree of legal and economic equality to women when compared to many other contemporary and even later classical civilizations such as Greece or Rome. Egyptian women, regardless of their social class, possessed remarkably significant legal rights. They were legally permitted to own, inherit, and dispose of property in their own names without the need for a male guardian to act on their behalf. They could enter into contracts, run businesses, especially textile production and brewing, and appear in court as legal equals to men, allowing wealthy and noble women to manage vast estates and exert considerable economic influence. This relatively advanced legal status was deeply rooted in the concept of mat, which emphasized balance and harmony in all things, extending to gender relations within the family and legal sphere. While the political throne remained predominantly in the hands of men, there were notable and powerful exceptions. Most famously, Hatshepsut, who ruled as a full pharaoh during the 18th dynasty, to assert her ultimate authority in a traditionally male role. She adopted all the customary royal regalia, including the male ceremonial false beard, and had herself depicted in statues and reliefs with an idealized masculine physique to solidify her divine right to govern and maintain Mat throughout Egyptian history. Several prominent women held great influence as great royal wives who held significant spiritual and cultic authority, queen mothers, and high priestesses, demonstrating the spiritual and indirect political power available to them. This cultural acceptance of powerful female figures persisted even when the country was ruled by foreign powers. Cleopatra VII, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, is often mistakenly viewed as purely Egyptian. In truth, she was descended from Greek Macedonian generals who took control after Alexander the Great's conquest. Her dynasty, the Ptolemies, maintained a Hellenistic Greek culture and language. However, Cleopatra strategically distinguished herself by fully embracing the local culture. She was the first of her dynasty to learn to speak the Egyptian language and presented herself in public ceremonies as a living manifestation of the powerful Egyptian goddess Isis. This calculated blending of her Greek heritage with her adopted Egyptian identity was a political masterstroke, allowing her to command loyalty and power both within her Greek court and among the native Egyptian populace. The institution of the Pharaohs was often secured and purified through unusual, albeit politically motivated practices, including royal marriages with siblings, sisters, or half-sisters. It was primarily a political and religious tool intended to preserve the purity of the divine bloodline and ensure the throne remained tightly controlled within the immediate royal family, symbolically separating the ruler from the rest of humanity. Therefore, the status of women in Egypt was a nuanced reflection of their society's legal and religious framework, granting them a sphere of freedom and influence largely unknown in the ancient Mediterranean world. The ancient Egyptians achieved remarkable advancements in practical science, technology, and medicine, particularly when viewed against the backdrop of their early historical period. Their sophisticated understanding of astronomy was not purely abstract. It served a vital, practical function underpinning their agricultural and religious calendar. As mentioned previously, their reliance on the annual Nile inundation, which occurred predictably around the time the bright star Sirius Sopdet made its heliacal rising the day it first becomes visible before the sun after a period of invisibility, led them to create an incredibly accurate 365-day calendar. This calendar structure, which formed the basis for our modern system, was a testament to their long-term, precise sky observations. This priestly class often functioned as skilled astronomers, tracking celestial movements not just for timekeeping, but also for aligning their monumental architecture, such as the Great Pyramids, to cardinal directions and specific stellar points. In the field of medicine, the Egyptians were surprisingly advanced, often demonstrating a clear distinction between physical ailments and spiritual causes. Medical papyri, such as the Edwin Smith Papyrus, focusing on surgical treatments for trauma, and the Ebers Papyrus, listing hundreds of recipes and diagnoses, reveal a profound knowledge of anatomy, illness, and treatment. Egyptian physicians were highly specialized, with documented practitioners focusing on dentistry, eye diseases, and general surgery. They were capable of performing complex surgical procedures using a variety of bronze tools, including scalpels, sutures, and specialized forceps, which have been found in archaeological contexts. Furthermore, they developed effective remedies for common complaints. For instance, they developed treatments for toothaches using herbal pastes, and were adept at setting broken bones using splints made from linen and resin. Dentistry was rudimentary but practiced, largely focused on dealing with the severe wear and abscesses caused by the gritty diet. Their understanding of health also extended to preventative measures. The widespread use of kohl eyeliner, made primarily from ground galena, a lead stick, was not just aesthetic, but a practical defense against disease. Modern scientific analysis has shown that trace amounts of lead salts in the kohl, when reacting with the skin, actually produced small amounts of nitric oxide, which has antibacterial properties, actively helping to prevent eye infections that were common along the Nile. Beyond medicine, the Egyptians displayed clever engineering in their trade and transport. They were masters of shipbuilding, constructing large, sophisticated vessels capable of navigating the Nile and the open sea, necessary for their trade expeditions to places like the land of Punt. They developed methods to build dismantleable boats that could be broken down and carried overland to bypass cataracts or be easily reconstructed for sea voyages, a testament to their practical technological acumen. These diverse scientific and engineering achievements underscore a culture that valued methodical observation, record-keeping, and the application of knowledge to solve practical problems, from farming to healing. The Egyptians held a unique and profound respect for the animal kingdom, often integrating species directly into their religious beliefs and cosmology, viewing them as living manifestations of the gods. This reverence resulted in a protective relationship with certain species, most notably the cat. The cat was highly revered, associated with the benevolent goddess Bastet, goddess of home, fertility, and protection, who was often depicted as a woman with the head of a lioness or domestic cat. Because of this divine connection, the domestic cat was treated with extraordinary reverence and was a protected animal. The penalty for harming a cat, even unintentionally, was severe, and killing a cat was often punishable by death, reflecting the intensity of their belief. When a family cat died, the entire family would often enter a period of deep mourning, sometimes even shaving their eyebrows as a sign of grief. This spiritual connection also extended to the practice of sacred animal mummification. Vast numbers of animals, including ibises sacred to Thoth, falcons sacred to Horus, and even crocodiles sacred to Set, were bred in temple enclosures and were mummified after death to be offered as sacred votive gifts to the relevant deity. Millions of these mummified animals have been discovered in catacombs, highlighting the scale of this religious practice. Among the most potent and widespread animal symbols was the scarab beetle Khepri. The Egyptians observed the beetle's habit of meticulously rolling a ball of dung which contained its eggs across the ground. They interpreted this action as a miniature parallel to the movement of the sun across the sky, embodying the rising, creator aspect of the sun god Ra. Thus, the scarab became a powerful symbol of rebirth, regeneration, and the perpetual cycle of existence. It was frequently crafted into amulets and seals, often placed on the chest of mummies as a heart scarab, a protective talisman intended to remain silent during the critical weighing of the heart ceremony, ensuring the deceased's heart would not betray them. Other animals played specific roles in the mythology. The jackal, a scavenger of the desert, was associated with Anubis, the god of embalming and guardian of the cemeteries, underscoring the animal's role in the cycle of decay and protection. The crocodile was linked to the volatile and powerful god Sobek, a deity of the Nile and fertility, often revered and propitiated to protect against the dangers of the river. The Egyptian understanding of the divine was deeply ecological, linking the spiritual power of their gods directly to the characteristics and cycles of the animals and environment that surrounded them, making the natural world an active, living part of their religious cosmology. This pervasive integration of fauna into their faith demonstrates a deep and respectful, albeit complex, relationship with nature. Despite their geographic focus along the Nile, ancient Egypt was far from isolated, maintaining extensive networks of trade, diplomacy, and warfare that shaped the entire Near East. Their military was formidable, especially following the introduction of the war chariot during the Second Intermediate Period. Quickly mastering its use, the Egyptians transformed their army into a rapid, powerful fighting force, allowing great warrior pharaohs like Thutmose III and Ramesses II to establish and control a vast empire that stretched from Nubia, Sudan in the south to the Levant, modern Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine in the north. This expansion ensured access to vital resources and controlled lucrative trade routes. Essential to Egyptian prestige and ritual were materials sourced from far-flung locations. For example, the prized blue stone lapis lazuli, widely used in funerary art like the mask of Tutankhamun and jewelry, was not native to Egypt and had to be imported all the way from mines in what is now Afghanistan, an astonishing distance of over 2,000 miles. Demonstrating the immense reach of their trade networks, perhaps the most famous trade destination was the mysterious land of Punt, whose exact location is still debated, likely modern Eritrea or Sudan. Expeditions to Punt, most famously documented during the reign of Hatshepsut, were undertaken to acquire highly prized goods such as frankincense and myrrh, essential for rituals and perfumes, gold, ebony, and exotic animals. While often reliant on military might, Egypt also played a key role in international diplomacy. The pinnacle of this was the agreement signed between Pharaoh Ramesses II and the Hittite king, Hattusili III, in 1259 BCE. This agreement, following years of conflict climaxing at the Battle of Kadesh, is widely regarded as the world's first surviving written peace treaty. The treaty established mutual non-aggression, defined borders, and pledged military assistance in case of invasion, providing a remarkable early example of international law and diplomacy. Throughout their long history, the royal family often used the cartouche, an oval ring that symbolically encircled the hieroglyphs of the pharaoh's name. This simple oval was meant to represent the entire cosmos, protecting the sacred royal name from malicious magic and ensuring that the ruler's identity was bound to the eternal, universal order. The Egyptians viewed their civilization as the ultimate authority, and even when conquered by foreign powers like the Nubians, Greeks, and Romans, their cultural and religious framework was so robust that it often absorbed and transformed the invaders, influencing their architecture, art, and belief systems for centuries. This enduring cultural power was a key element of their long-term dominance, proving that their legacy extended far beyond their political borders. The final chapter focuses on the enduring allure of Egyptian tombs, the incredible discoveries they held, and the popular myths surrounding them. The ancient Egyptians poured immense resources into funerary architecture, viewing the tomb as the eternal residence of the Ka and the necessary safe haven for the preserved body. Given the immense wealth placed within these tombs intended for the deceased, use in the afterlife tomb robbery was a constant and perennial problem throughout all periods of Egyptian history, leading the SCD to employ specialized tomb guards and institute the ultimate sanction, the death penalty for those caught desecrating or stealing royal possessions. To thwart robbers, architects became ingenious, designing elaborate false passages, complex traps, and hidden burial chambers, often leading to the eventual concentration of royal burials in secluded, heavily guarded sites, like the Valley of the Kings during the New Kingdom. Despite these measures, most royal tombs were ultimately looted in antiquity. This history of robbery is what made the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun in November 1922 so monumental. Discovered by archaeologist Howard Carter, the tomb was almost miraculously preserved and nearly intact, hidden beneath the rubble of later structures. Its discovery revealed a spectacular treasure trove window into the wealth and artistry of the 18th dynasty. The tomb contained over 5,000 individual objects, ranging from chariots and elaborate furniture to food, clothing, and weapons, all intended to equip the young king for eternity. The most famous artifact is the solid gold burial mask of Tutankhamun, which weighs over 20 pounds and is crafted from gold, inlaid with lapis lazuli and other semi-precious stones, symbolizing the eternal, unblemished nature of the deified Pharaoh. The discovery immediately captured global attention, but it was accompanied by a wave of sensationalism, the myth of the curse of the Pharaohs. This myth gained traction following the death of Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financial backer, just months after the tomb was opened. The media eagerly fueled the idea that mysterious, deadly powers protected the tomb. While several members of the excavation team did die in the years that followed, most modern historians and scientists attribute these deaths to natural causes, coincidences, or potential exposure to dormant pathogens like molds or bacteria that can thrive in sealed ancient spaces rather than a supernatural hex. The tomb curse narrative, though romantic, is largely regarded as a fabrication amplified by the press, reflecting the public's fascination with the mysteries of the ancient world. Nonetheless, the sheer scale and beauty of the treasures preserved in Tutankhamun's resting place provided invaluable, unparalleled insights into the rituals, beliefs, and artistic genius of the Egyptian New Kingdom, cementing its place as the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century and forever defining the global image of ancient Egypt.